Welcome back guys to another spooky episode of censorship in anime media. Today I'm looking at a cult classic and favorite of mine, Shaman King. Shaman King has been in the news lately, especially on my own channel, and it's easy to see why. With a new anime coming in April 2021, if it isn't postponed, and the re-release of the manga in English-speaking countries, including these countries receiving the actual ending to the series for the first time, it's a good time to be a fan of the franchise, and a good time to get into it as well. Very recently, on October 6th, 2020, Kodansha released their version of Shaman King on some online book reading platforms. This is Kodansha's first release of Shaman King, and the first in English-speaking languages since Viz Media let the license expire a few years ago. That Viz Media release contained some questionable censorship that came in the heels of the 4Kids broadcast of the anime in the early 2000s. While wildly speculated to be completely uncut, this Kodansha release, however, still contained some censorship. Some. And it's very inconsistent as to whether it happens or not, and that's the focus of today's video. I'm not going to get into a full comparison between the Viz release and the new Kodansha release because, well, I don't have access to the Viz release. It was only released in physical format, and it's been so long out of print that some of the volumes have reached out of print prices on Amazon, and I ain't about that life. I love you guys, but I ain't about that life. Had I the means to, I would do a full comparison between the Viz release, the Kodansha release, and a fan sub that's been floating around online for a few years. But I don't, so I'll work with what I got so I can inform you guys about this new Kodansha release. So let's get moving. You guys know the drill. I'll show you some pictures and my analysis, and you guys make your own conclusions. So let's get looking at the weird censorship of the Kodansha Shaman King manga release. The first thing I really want to show you guys is the cover page for chapter 70. In the original Japanese release, Ryu is shown smoking a cigarette in a very flashy fashion. His hand is holding it in that very exaggerated "I'm smoking something" V shape that is used a lot in popular culture. In the Kodansha release, the cigarette has not only been edited out, but his posture has been changed to where he's resting his hand on his thigh. That's inoffensive enough, as Ryu is 18 years old in the canon at this point in the story. However, there's something else going on here. Most panels with Ryu smoking are actually left as is in the Kodansha release, so this one specific change doesn't make that much sense to me. Here he is smoking, and here he is smoking. I would say that most other times that Ryu is shown smoking are left alone, but in this one cover page, it's changed. I don't get it. Part of me thinks that it may be from the Japanese only re-release edition of Shaman King Kanzang Bang, which translates to Complete Edition. This release condensed the original 35 volumes into 27 and features new cover art for the volumes. It's possible that this image is from that release versus Kodansha actually censoring it, but I don't really know and there's no way to verify that. The only other possible indicator to support that would be that Yo's face was also changed. And why would Kodansha do that if it's not offensive in any way? Updated artwork would explain that, but the truth of the matter is it could be any one of those reasons. Next up is a rather famous one in the community. If you know, you know. Look at this image. And now look at this image. What discrepancy do you see? What's the difference here? If you answered that Tanuki has huge fucking balls, you are correct. You see, Ponchi and Konchi are spirit allies of Tamao, who is an apprentice ascetic to the Asakura family, and Ponchi is a Tanuki. Tanukis are known for many things in Japanese lore, as they are generally perceived as being tricksters. Another thing that they are noteworthy for is their huge fucking balls. This censor I do recall from the Viz release as well. And it's back in full force here in the Kodansha release. Every panel of Ponchi's balls has been redrawn to look like his stomach instead. If you got a weak stomach, you may want to skip this part of the video, but I think it's very amusing to find something like this in the manga and Shonen Jump anyway. To that point, there's a scene in Ponchi's introduction where Manta is captured by Ponchi's balls, and you can't make this stuff up. That's way too ridiculous. It's been completely changed in the English release, but the translation still stays as faithful as it can under these circumstances. Honestly, I applaud Viz Media and Kodansha for working around this. These characters certainly would have gotten Shaman King an M rating in its release, and this is a clever workaround. My favorite change is this close-up on Ponchi's balls as Anna squeezes them. It's been changed to his stomach in a very clever way. Also note the removal of the pubic hair. Very clear censorship, but also very clean. I ain't even mad. This is pretty consistent editing across the board and mirrors Viz Media's changes to the character heavily. Noting this, I would suggest that Viz's translation and censorship was used as the base for Kodansha's re-release. But let's continue. Lastly, we have the most controversial, but also the most inconsistent change in Kodansha's release. It's time we have that talk. There's a character in this franchise named Chocolove. He's an African-American male, has huge lips, a scar on his head, and he used to be a jailbird early in his life. He looks like this in the original Japanese release, and this is what he looks like in the Kodansha release. This is also how he looked in the Viz Media release. Now, moving past that part of my script, here's where I find things a bit inconsistent. This is how the Kodansha releases look like on the Comixology page. Reasonable enough, right? And this censor reflects the Viz Media censor and the Kodansha censor. It's actually the exact same thing. But if you go to the Kodansha website, they still have Chocolove, who was localized as Joco in both the English manga and the 4Kids dub, in his original appearance. Personally, I'm pretty sure the lips and the scar are the things that Viz Media found and Kodansha finds the most controversial aspect of this character. But they can't even get it right in between different websites. This is the same Kodansha release that dropped this week. All that's different is the website. Hell, in the same chapter that he's introduced, Ryu makes a comparison to a different character whose lips are left intact. So there is a discrepancy here. It doesn't make a lot of sense, and depending on where you're looking, the cover versions are different. I'm not going to get into why I think this change was made or whether I think it was justified or not. I'm just here to report this one, but the inconsistency here definitely doesn't make too much sense. It's just like with Ryu smoking. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it isn't. Make your own assessments. I think it's an oversight built on good intentions of not being perceived as offensive, but there hasn't been a full commitment to that idea, and it's very obvious to note it. I can only speculate what the official physical release of the manga next year will include. Will it have the censorship? Will it be completely uncut? Time will tell, but what we have right now is the digital release, and there's certainly a few discrepancies here that don't align to make a coherent picture. And that's all I really got for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know this video might get some flack and might even inspire controversy, but I'm just telling you guys what I see. I hope this doesn't cause too much trouble for Kodansha, as inconsistencies in manga releases are fairly common, unfortunate as that is. And ultimately, the great thing is that we do have Shaman King back. It's not a perfect digital release, but it's far more accessible than Viz Media had to work with back in the day. And the fact that we're getting 3-in-1 physical volumes makes me all the more excited, and I certainly can't wait for that. If you like this video, please comment, like, and subscribe for more stuff. I'll definitely be doing more Shaman King content in the future, so if you like this franchise, I would subscribe. Thank you guys again, and as always, have a good one.